First off, Tony, welcome back. I know these folks have missed you. How are you feeling?
Oddly enough, I actually miss you guys, which tells you that I'm not healthy yet. But now excited to be back, and the reason we're going to be here till your questions are over is because Mike took my wheelchair, and so basically I'm stuck here. But now I am feeling a lot better. We've made huge gains in the last 4 weeks. This is probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to deal with. This is definitely the worst injury I've ever had in my life and racing career. So it's definitely it's been a big change from being probably one of the busiest drivers on the schedule to being in bed 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So we're getting around a lot better. It's starting to get, I've got a lot of my independence back as far as being able to take care of myself and get up and shower, do all the simple things that we take for granted. That's stuff that we've been able to do here in the last couple of weeks that we've gained back. So we're definitely making a lot of ground on it.
And I do want to welcome everyone tuning in to Sirius XM NASCAR Radio Channel 90, our friends at ESPN Sports Center is following us now, and our industry members on the NASCAR teleconference. So with that, we'll go ahead and open the floor to questions. Again, if you can state your name and affiliation, that would be greatly appreciated. We'll go ahead and start right over here with Lee.
Lee Spencer, Fox Sports. What's the prognosis, and when do you expect to be back in a race car?
They're looking at the beginning of February, which isn't a bad deal. I mean, it's really, I guess if you had to have this injury happen, if it had happened a month later, it would have got us in a really big bind for next year even. So it would have messed up not only the end of this year, but the beginning of next year. So to answer your question, February is what they're looking at. And then something that is part of this process, I've really been very vague with the doctors about what's going on and what's happening, what's going to happen a month down the road or 3 months down the road. And the reason for that, I've tried to kind of, to a certain degree, protect myself from myself by not getting too far ahead and not trying to do something too early that I'm not supposed to do. I'm really trying to guard against setbacks right now. A setback would really be bad, but everything is going according to schedule and may actually be a little bit ahead of schedule. But as long as if we get done early, we don't have anything to gain by it. If we have a setback, we have a lot to lose by it. So I've been pretty disciplined on just trying to not. Every time the doctor says I'm going to see you in so many days, I ask what do you want me to do through that period and what's the goal. So I'm kind of learning as we go here and trying to not get ahead of myself. So I haven't asked too many questions as far as what the time frames are, other than just the obvious of when am I going to be able to get back in a car. And he's very confident February will be okay. He said it should be 100% recovery. He doesn't see any problem in that whatsoever. So there was no doubt in his mind when he said it. He had a grin on his face, and he said there's no doubt it'll be 100%. And said when it heals, it'll actually be stronger than it was before.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. Good to see you again, Tony. And I guess I want to know what you've learned about yourself and your organization through this process.
I don't know that I learned much about myself. I mean, I pretty much knew already that I could sleep 20 hours out of a 24-hour day going into this, but the team I've learned a lot about. I mean, the one thing, Greg Zipadelli, I can tell you this, when I heal, Greg Zipadelli is going to be the first one to try to kill me when I heal from this. But I've never been more proud of him and everybody here at Stewart Haas to go what we're going through and try to make the changes and the growth that we're going through all at the same time and in such a short amount of time and go through this injury. This team has stayed extremely focused, and I'm proud of the group we've got. I mean, I think everybody's just kind of said this is the cards we're dealt. Now what's next and what do we do? Nobody sat there and were like, oh, this is doom and gloom. They're like, okay, what do we do next? How do we make the adjustment, and what's the plan going forward? So I've probably learned more about the team than I have myself, which I've been very impressed with. I think they've done a great job.
Marty Smith, ESPN. When you were injured and you're sitting there in your own space, how much concern did you have about letting people down, your team and your employees and your sponsors and all the tentacles that come from Tony Stewart?
You never want something like this to happen, but, a perfect example this week is Bobby Labonte was riding his bike and broke 3 ribs and missed a race. It's just life, guys. I mean, things happen every day that you can't guard against all the time. And the thing is, you got to live life. I mean, you can't spend your whole life trying to guard against something happening. If you do that, in my opinion, you've wasted your time. We're all here a short amount of time in the big picture, and if I'm somebody that wants to live life. I'm not somebody that wants to sit there and say, I got to guard against this and I got to worry about that. I mean, if I got in a race car and didn't wear a helmet, didn't wear seatbelts, then that would be dangerous, and that's being foolish. We don't do that. I mean, but I'm going to go live my life. I'm going to take full advantage of whatever time I got on this earth. I'm going to ride it out to the fullest, and I'm going to get my money's worth. You can bet your butt on that.
Hi, Tony. Tom Jensen, FoxSports.com. Welcome back. We've missed you too. Last week, Gene Haas was here talking about the 4th team, and he made a couple of jokes and comments about you guys weren't necessarily on the same page when he proposed the idea to you. Are you now? Have you guys worked through it? Are you excited about it? Where are you?
Well, it wasn't as dramatic as he made it sound. When Gene came to me about the 4th team, he told me on a Monday, and then on Thursday I was told that they had a contract ready. So it definitely moved a lot faster, but in that time frame there were a lot of meetings in 3 days. And the biggest thing was having Greg Zipadelli sit there and say, we can do this and we can get it done in a time frame. And that was my concern. It wasn't that I was against the idea of what Gene had in mind. In all honesty, I thought, and you think about what role he's played in this company. I mean, ever since I've been a part of Stewart Haas with him, every year he's become more engaged than the year before. And for him to go out and take an opportunity like this to go find somebody like Kurt and do it in the time frame and make this happen in such a short amount of time has really been encouraging to me as his partner in this deal. It was just me getting caught up more than anything. And when he asked me about it, I wanted to make sure that we had the time. The timing's very tight, and we're going to have to get a lot done in a short amount of time to accomplish this. But I think it was really Greg saying we can do this and we can get this done in the time frame. And it may not be fun and it may not be easy, but we can do it. That was what made me finally give my 100% blessing on it. And it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't that we never argued about it. He asked me my opinion, and it was just Gene was so excited about doing this and having his hand involved in it. And that's great. I mean, for me, as his partner, I love seeing him in this engaged. And I really am proud of him for being as active in this process as he was. I was just worried about the time frame, and that's what he hired me for. I mean, my job's to protect this company, to look out for it, make sure that what we do in the right timing. And, like I said, Greg was the big factor of assuring me that we could do it in the right time frame and not hurt the effort that we've got with Ryan trying to make the chase and run for a championship this year.
Okay, we'll go Dustin, Kenny, and then Jenna.
Dustin Long, Motor Racing Network. I just want to go back to, I can understand and appreciate your point about you've got to live life as with your limited time here. Obviously, your situation, different from like mine or a lot of other people, is certainly a lot of people depend on you here in this organization. How does that responsibility, does it change? Does this incident make you rethink that to some degree in that balance between your responsibility to the folks in here to your right to do with whatever you want in your life? Has that changed?
Well, it's saying that I'm going to live my life doesn't mean I can do anything I want, but you can go in there and ask those guys. None of those guys missed a day of work through this. Nobody's got a cut and paycheck. It hasn't changed their life as far as what they do and what their job and what their responsibilities are here. How my role in the company has definitely changed. But, we got a guy out here that you couldn't ask for a better guy to come fill in, and having Mark and Arlene here, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys being here, first of all. That means a lot. But, this company never stopped. I know what you're saying about the responsibility, but, I mean, I've been a part of meetings for the last 3 weeks. I haven't really missed work. I mean, the only part of my job that I've missed as far as responsibilities to this company is I haven't been in the race car. And granted, I'm not trying to downplay that, but I'm going to go to Tallahassee, Florida tomorrow to a Bass Pro Shop appearance. I'm going to be in one in Richmond, Virginia on Thursday. I'm not missing work. I'll have missed one appearance since this has happened, and other than being out of the race car, that's all I've missed. That's all I've let down as far as my responsibilities. But, like I've said before, I mean, if I got hit by a car on the street coming to the shop and this injury happened, I would still have missed the same thing. You can't guard against everything. So as far as thinking about it, everything that I do, we sit there and try to make sure we're as safe about doing it as possible. And it was an accident. It wasn't something that it wasn't something that was pre-planned. It wasn't anything other than just an accident that happens just like anything else in life that happens out there, just like Bobby's deal this week. I mean, that's why they call it accidents. Nobody does it on purpose.
Kenny Bruce with NASCAR.com. Tony, first of all, it sounds like you're going to be in Richmond this weekend. I just wanted to see if that was the case, if you'd be at the track. And also, going forward, are there any more surgeries or anything like that planned with your leg? And what's the medical plan going forward?
When the accident happened on Monday night, they did surgery right away just to clean up the scenario as far as the bones, the tissue, the skin. There's a lot of skin damage in the accident, and so they got that all taken care of in Iowa, which I will say that from the time that the car stopped in the wreck to the time that I got to Eddie and Dana Jarvis's house, that's about as good a care as I possibly could have imagined ever would have happened. I mean, Jay Mercer was the first one to get to me at the race car, and he's actually a doctor, I believe, in South Dakota, and I've actually stayed in contact with him since. But he's got a very good medical staff that takes care of the racers at Houston Speedway in South Dakota, and they go down to Oskaloosa and help during Nationals Week. The care that his staff gave me at the track and all the way to the first hospital, and when we got to Des Moines and got to the hospital there, their staff and that first surgery went really, really well. They flew me back to Charlotte on Wednesday, 2 days after the first surgery. And on Thursday morning at 8 o'clock, I went in the second surgery, and that was to insert the titanium rod that's in my leg now. And that rod will stay in. So there's no anticipated extra surgeries after this. We're on the mend. They've actually, this past Wednesday, took out 90% of the stitches that were in the skin. The skin's healing really well. Like I said, there is a lot of skin damage where the bones and where they got through the skin during the accident. But the rest of those stitches will actually come out with a doctor that helps us here with Stewart Haas Racing, who will be at the racetrack this weekend. He's going to take out the remaining stitches, and then we'll be done with that. So no extra surgeries. There's no, we're not out of the woods as far as infection right now with the skin or the bones. But, the time frame that the doctor said is if we can get through the first 2 months and not have any dramas with infection, that the odds of getting it are really, really low. So, we're halfway there on that, and, the skin just keeps healing faster than the doctor anticipated. So everything is progressing really well right now.
Jennifer, AP. Tony, I have two questions, both sort of related. Sprint car racing, you sort of haven't been asked directly. Zippy had said that all that racing, it's your hunting, it's your fishing, and it also gives you your edge, he thinks, into what you do. So will you keep up the same sort of schedule that you think you've done in the past, is question number one. Question number two, Mark and Zippy both said in a joint press conference that they think that their exact words were you are bound and determined to address sprint car safety, and that sort of make improvements that maybe should have done years ago. What can you do and add to that going forward?
Go back to the first one again. What was the first one?
The first one.
Am I going to run? Yeah.
Yeah. Are you going to run? And
I
is
haven't
that?
had to think very much the last 4 weeks. I've got
Yeah.
to sit here and watch Oprah for 4 weeks now, and I'm absolutely tired of watching TV. But as far as getting back in a sprint car, this year was the most aggressive schedule that we'd planned, and I, even if I was 100% healthy, wouldn't plan on racing 70 races again next year. I think I was a little aggressive on my schedule as far as how many dates I wanted to run. But even with that, I mean, some of the places that we went to, some of them are tracks that I'm like, it's probably not a place I want to go back to next year. The schedule, I am going to get back in a car eventually. There's no time frame on when I'm going to get back in one, but I'm definitely going to cut back the amount of races, just out of scheduling purposes more than anything. Just, I was starting to tell I was getting a little bit tired around Brickyard time. And that was, we had the truck race that week, which was a lot of stress, and we had a lot of races scheduled in the 2 weeks prior to that. So definitely going to cut back quite a bit. And a lot of that is, it's not been pressure from the sponsors. Our sponsors have been absolutely amazing through this whole thing. Everybody at ExxonMobil, all the executives there have either sent text messages to me on the phone or sent us letters to the house. Johnny Morris is one of my best friends, and he came to the house and saw us. And there's definitely concern. They want me to be healthy. They want me to get, be 100% health-wise, and every one of them's worried about my safety. And obviously, the sprint car topic's been a little bit of a sensitive topic with them, and a lot of them just don't understand everything about sprint car racing. So it's easy to understand their side from that. But they've all been supportive of me living my life and understanding why I do what I do, and but for sure, I'm definitely going to cut back that schedule. The safety side, it started before I even brought it up. Jerry Russell, who used to own Eagle Chassis, has already is developing a torque tube tunnel, which is kind of like a drive shaft tunnel for what we have in Cup cars for the same reason. Jeannie Butler and Butler Built here in Charlotte have already been working on tether systems for the front of the sprint cars, where my group, Jimmy Carr, who's my crew chief, has already been working on issues in the torque tube that he thinks can be addressed, plus tethers for the back of the car to make sure that the rear end coming back like it did that actually caused the problem will be addressed. So the great thing is it's kind of a movement similar to when Dale Sr. crashed and how it sparked the movement of safety in stock car racing. It's been really impressive to see how many companies and groups have really started looking at how can we make things better. And this wasn't a deal where it was a wore-out race car and wore-out parts and somebody that you question their maintenance program. And this was a brand new car that we had, and it was just the perfect storm and a freak accident that I've never even heard of what happened happening to anybody else as far as the actual injury and everything, as far as how it happened. So, but the good thing is that it got enough attention to, I guess, get this movement started, and there's a lot of people that are actively working on it right now. So there's going to be something that comes positive out of this negative of being hurt. It's, sprint car racing's had a dark cloud over it this summer, and just a lot of things that normally don't happen in it have happened in a short amount of time. And it's reading some of the articles from from riders that don't know anything about sprint car racing. What they've wrote has just devastated the sprint car community. And I think that's been a big part in why some of these manufacturers have got involved and are trying to say, hey, this isn't as dangerous as everybody thinks it is, but we can make it better. So there's going to be something positive come out of this, just like in NASCAR. And there's no formal group like NASCAR put together to actually do this, but it's independent manufacturers that are saying, hey, we're going to figure something out, and that's pretty impressive to see.
Okay, we'll go with Nate and then work our way down. Bob, Jim, and then Mike there in the back.
Nate Ryan, USA Today Sports. Tony, going back to what you said about the heightened engagement of Gene Haas, I just wanted to get your thoughts on this to be able to clarify. You said pretty emphatically at New Hampshire, no fourth car for next year. And then, of course, now while you were sidelined, all these things get set in motion to add this fourth car. Was that a conversation that you and Gene just maybe never had, that he would be willing to foot the bill and just pay out of his own pocket, whatever it would take, the millions it would take to start a fourth car? And were there any concerns about the perception of how that might look, that it all transpired while, as Gene Haas said, you were incapacitated? Have you guys had any conversations since the Kurt Busch announcement to talk about that?
Well, when we had the press conference at Loudon, where we were at then is exactly what we said, and was 100% on the mark. There was no I was pretty disappointed to hear Kyle Petty say that we basically lied to Ryan and deceived Ryan. Deceived was the word that he used, actually, and said that we deceived him at Loudon, in doing this. Gene addressed this last week. I mean, this literally came up while they were at Indy at Brickyard, and they were at a Chevy dinner. And that's when the conversation of doing the fourth team for next year, that's when it started. So I think as it progressed, Gene's not used to having partners. Gene's a self-made success story in the CNC industry, and he's pretty much been a one-man show doing it. And this is the first time that he's really had a partner. And I think going through that process, I don't think that he thought much. He just didn't think about talking to me about it till it got further along. And like I said, the Monday that they came, a week after my accident, was the first time that he talked to me about it. And granted, I was in the hospital the week before, so that's probably why he didn't talk to me about it sooner. But a lot happened in a very short amount of time. And that's why when he spoke to me about it was really the first opportunity that he had. It moved along very quickly. And like I said, my only concern was the fact of the sponsorship about it and the time frame of building the team. As far as having Kurt's a huge asset. I mean, he's a guy that can go to every racetrack and has the capability of going out and being fast and being able to possibly win the race every week at every discipline. So as far as having Kurt, having a fourth team, there was nothing in my mind when he said that discouraged me, because I knew from day one that Gene wanted this to be a four-car team eventually. I had no dream that he had it in mind for 2014 till 3 Mondays ago. So, but as far as how it was going to look, and especially to Ryan, I mean, I think Gene addressed it last week. I mean, this was something that he came up with, and it happened all at once. And Gene had made the decision that he wanted to make a change. And, we're partners in this, and, Gene wanted to make a change, and I got to go with that. So, his choice to add Kurt to the organization, I mean, I really, truly was 100% behind it. I was just concerned about the time frame. So the rest of it about, everybody's perception that we're fighting and arguing, there was never one argument between us. I just expressed my concern about the timing of it, and it was no more elevated than the conversation you and I are having right here. It was just literally about trying to figure out the facts of, can we feasibly do this in the time frame that we have, and can we do it to the level that we want to accomplish in that short amount of time.
Bob Pockers, Sporting News. First, I just wanted to confirm, was it the torque tube that hit your leg? Okay.
Yes.
All right. And as far as your therapy goes, do you know what you're going to have to do to get ready to be back in a car, and what will determine when you get back in the car? Is it just a matter of healing, so there's no further injury, or is there pain and muscles that you have to address before being able to race?
Yeah, the injuries are not just compound fractures. That was probably the easiest part of it. There is tissue damage, there's skin damage that's involved. And that's kind of been the first part of this process that the doctor was concerned about, was before even the bones. I mean, they put the titanium rod in, and that's all they've done bone-wise up to this point. They literally, the first phase of this healing process was getting the skin to heal together, which I'll admit I've been about as squeamish as you've ever seen. I mean, I literally have damn near passed out at every doctor visit I've been to so far with the surgeon. And I go into it with the attitude that I'm not going to look at my leg. And then as soon as they get the wrapping off of it, I'm like, I got to look. It's like yelling at a dog going squirrel. I cannot not look. So, and then I spend the rest of the time sitting there with a wet washcloth on my forehead trying to regain consciousness. So, but it's once we get through that, as far as the therapy side, like I mentioned earlier, I really don't know the time frame of that. I know I don't have another doctor's visit for 3 Wednesdays from now, and this is the longest that I've went without seeing him. But I'm pretty sure that right after that's when we're going to start therapy. Like I said, the main reason I don't know the answer to that is because I'm trying to keep from getting ahead of myself. I do know that when we start therapy, he said there's going to be a lot of crying involved, so I'm not looking forward to that. But I am looking forward to being able to get up and walk around like I'm used to doing, and getting around like I'm used to. So, and the biggest thing is I can't wait to get back in a race car. And I want to be ready for Daytona. As far as when he's going to give me the green light, I don't know what that's going to entail. I'm sure a lot of it's going to be really the bones being healed 100% or as close that it needs to be to do what I need to do. The rest of it, I think, is going to be up to us therapy-wise to get the rest of that in shape, and I can promise you we'll work really hard on that side to accomplish that goal too. But the doctor will ultimately make that decision as far as when we're clear to get back in a race car.
Jim Utter, Charlotte Observer. You said you've been watching a lot of television. I just wondered, have you been watching a lot of NASCAR television, and what has it been like to follow the sport as a sort of fan rather than participant?
I'll be honest, when I heard Kyle Petty say that we deceived Ryan Newman, I pretty much quit watching the talk shows and went to just watching the qualifying shows, the practices, and the race. I'm kind of used to hearing some of that. I'm glad I'm at the racetrack and don't see those shows because I was a little disappointed with it. But, every weekend, especially the last 2 weekends, my team's got me the radio that you guys are aware of that I can sit there and listen to the team and talk to the team, from the bedroom and lay in bed and watch TV and watch practice. And that's been really makes me feel engaged with the team even more. It's like even though I'm not there, I feel like I'm there. Even at Michigan when the 8:30 practice came up, I was, believe it or not, I was out of bed and watching an 8:30 practice. Like I said, made me feel like there's something still wrong with me because I'm getting up early and all that. But I really am trying to be as engaged as I can and trying to be, I'm not very much help from laying in bed in Charlotte. But, if there's one thing that I can see when I see the car on the racetrack that can help, I like having that opportunity to be able to contribute. So, but I get NASCAR.com. I get the timing and scoring on there. I get the little dots tracking around so I know exactly where the cars are on the track. I got the radio up here and I watch the TV and can follow the race. So I like listening to Dale Jarrett and those guys on race day. I just don't mind missing some of the other stuff that goes on before that really doesn't matter.
Tony, Mike Solarte with News 14 here in the back. You just talked about how you're staying engaged with the race team and that sort of thing. Is there any one thing that you are missing the most, other than obviously the obvious of being just able to go and do what you want to do with walking around? I mean, is there one thing you're missing in particular at the racetrack, but besides just being there?
The hot girls, there's no doubt. I mean, when you're laying in bed, there's not much traffic going through my room, so I thought surely through 3 Cup championships, an IndyCar championship, winning the USAC Triple Crown and National Championship in '94, that I could surely out of this whole process get one hot nurse during this whole thing, and I got Eddie Jarvis to take care of me. So, and with that, I mean, Eddie and Dana, you couldn't ask for a couple that is like family to me to take better care of me than they have. I mean, nobody could do it. They've literally turned their house upside down for me, altered their lives for me for the last month, and however much longer I have to interrupt their daily routine. But they have been beside me and through this with me 100% from day one. And there's been other people involved that have helped out a lot too. But, when this happened, I mean, Eddie had to make some really tough decisions in a very short amount of time. And I don't think there was anybody that I would have trusted more than him to make crucial decisions about where to go, what doctor to try to get in touch with, to do the procedures. And I think he did it and handled it better than anybody you could ask for. So, but yeah, I miss the girls at the track, I'll be honest. So.
We'll go with Jeff, Deb, David, and then we'll come to Doug here in the front.
Jeff Gluck from USA Today. After the wreck happened, I think the wife of the driver that was the other driver in the crash said something like, she thought that you might have even saved her husband's life because her view was that you made a last-minute turn when you saw him. What did happen in the crash? Did you try to avoid it at the last minute? And once you were injured, I mean, did you immediately know, like, this is season ending? I mean, this is really bad.
What actually happened in the accident is he had hit a marker tire on the inside of the track, and when it did, it pushed the tire in through the infield in a part that wasn't watered down like the racing surface was. So it picked up a dust cloud. There wasn't a lot of wind, but there was just enough wind that it pushed it over top of the racetrack. And what the view was like, I'm exaggerating when I say this, it was like the scene of Days of Thunder where he's driving into the smoke cloud. It wasn't quite that bad, but I couldn't see through it, and leading the race, I wasn't going to jump out of the gas just because there was dust there, because there's a lot of times people get below where those tires are and in between them pick up a little dust that kicks across. But, you know, we have one-way receivers in there, receivers that race control has, and nobody had called a caution. And I think it was, like I say, it was the perfect storm. I think they were a split second of calling it probably. And when I got through the backside of that and could actually see what was on the other side of it, he was sitting right in the middle of the racetrack. And, you know, the track we were running was a half-mile track, and it was very, very fast. And we were running wide open around there. The times were very quick. And so, you know, if it hadn't kicked up the dust, I would have been able to see him much earlier than I did. When I did see him, I was aimed straight at the cockpit. And, you know, even if I wasn't aimed straight at the cockpit, your reaction is to try to go around it. But definitely in that scenario, it was try to at least go somewhere other than where I was pointed. I knew I wasn't going to miss him, but at least I got to the side of it a little bit. And so, you know, I tried to minimize the damage of what was going to happen to both of us. But, you know, the way it worked out, it ended up, you know, tearing the right rear suspension up. And so as far as the second part of it, when I landed, I mean, I started unbuckling my helmet and undoing my belts, and it just felt weird that I couldn't, my right leg felt numb, and I thought I must have just banged it, you know, against a frame rail or something, and it went numb. But when I looked down, it's like I told Steve Addington, it wasn't like the toe was out in the front end, and it was more like we needed a jig to fix it. It was way out. So I knew at that point that it was fairly serious. And then when I went through the first surgery and realized, you know, I didn't really look at it, and it was still inside my leg was inside my uniform, so I really didn't fully understand what the extent of the injury was till after the first surgery and after they kind of showed me x-rays and what had happened and what they had to do to fix it. So at that point, I knew we were going to be out. The reason we didn't let you guys know that, and I know you guys probably think we deceived you by not telling you that information, but the reason for that was we had to make plans to not only figure out what we were going to do for the rest of the year driver-wise, but you know, make a plan. And with Ryan, still trying to get Ryan in the chase at that point of trying to not have answers to who was going to be in the car yet, that would have been a lot of media attention and stress that the teams didn't need to have. It was already bad enough, and that was our way, I guess, of kind of making sure we had our ducks in a row before we let you guys know what was going on, so we had the answers to why we're doing what we're doing, and that way we could make it a little more cleaned up on our end from the media side of being able to keep you guys abreast of what was going on. But it did take some time to get all those details organized to know what the answers were going to be, so we had them when we met with you guys.
Deb Williams, RacingToday.com. It's good to see you, Tony. Will all of your therapy be done here in Charlotte, or will you do some in Indianapolis with those doctors up there? And I know you said you didn't want to get ahead of yourself, but has the doctor indicated to you how many days a week you will have to do your therapy in each hour of the day?
Honestly, that's part of my goal the rest of the week. You know, we're kind of in this 3-week stretch here that he's kind of said you don't need to come back, but we're already starting to do some things with bands as far as trying to get range of motion in my foot and get stretching on both pulling my foot back and extension. So we've kind of somewhat started that. I'm not going to say that's my therapy yet, because I know it's going to be a hell of a lot harder than that. But like I said, not getting ahead of ourselves, I don't really have the answers to that yet. But I'm going to reach out to the doctor here in the next couple days and try to figure out exactly what the therapy schedule will be. And I think at the same time, that'll help me understand whether I'm able to do it from Indiana or whether I need to do it from Charlotte. We really don't know yet. I would like to do it from Indiana. I'm kind of ready to go home for a little bit. But at the same time, I've got a lot of responsibilities here. The biggest thing that I know from the doctor is that he said he did not want 2 therapists doing this, that he wanted 1 person that was dedicated to it through the whole process. And so that will dictate whether it's there or here. So, you know, but we have to, having to find out what that schedule is going to be will kind of help dictate where it's going to be as far as whether I need to stay down here or whether I'm going to be able to do it from home. But whatever he says and whatever we decide on, I mean, I'm not going to waver from it. You know, if I don't get to go home and I get to do it from here, I got a 200-piece family here that doesn't mind seeing me every day. So either way, I'm going to be content doing it wherever we have to do it.
David Caravello, NASCAR.com. Tony, I hear everything you're saying about Kurt being an asset and the conversations with Gene being just that. If you had been in a position to try to block this for logistical reasons, would you have or could you have?
It's a good question. I really don't know because we've not been in that position, through the last 5 years. But, I think through this whole process, I think it's been a learning experience for Gene as well. I mean, we've not ever had to think about anything. I mean, for the last 5 years, I've ran Stewart Haas Racing, so I definitely welcome Gene being engaged like this, and I'm excited he wants to be a part of it. I think Gene realizes the value of the group that we have here now, and especially since his media session on last Tuesday. I think he really understands this a lot more and that there's a lot more involved in it. But, he's a smart man and he understands what it takes to run a company. And I think he appreciates the job that Brett Fruit and Mike and Eddie and our group here really do and have done for the last 5 years. And I don't know, I think we would talk about it a lot more. I mean, he's definitely the guy that writes the checks. And if he decides he wants to do something, I'm pretty sure with the fact that he holds the checkbook that he gets kind of the final say of it. But I think he values our opinions now and understands why I was asking questions and cautious about the time frame of it. So I think he respects that a lot more since last week.
Doug Rice, Performance Racing Network. With one race left to go in the regular season before we get to the chase, can you evaluate the performance of both the 39 and the 10 for the first 25 races?
Well, I think on the 10 side, for sure. I mean, we all knew it was going to be a learning year. I was pretty impressed with Danica's race on Saturday. I mean, I know 21st isn't what she wants. Her standards and where she wants to be each week is much higher than my expectations are each week, but I thought she ran a really good race. And I think every week's just a learning week there. I don't think I'm definitely not judging her success by her finishing position. I'm judging it more by the Monday morning meetings and listening to her feedback and what she gained knowledge-wise out of each weekend versus the finishing position at the end of the day. I thought Ryan and Matt Borland, I think they've done a great job. I mean, we all got a really slow start to the year performance-wise. Here recently, obviously, Brickyard was huge. And, you look at the race Saturday night. I mean, if they don't get those last two cautions and it runs to the end, Ryan had a really, really strong shot at winning the race. The first restart got him back hemmed up in a spot that even made it tougher after the second restart. So, I know that wasn't what he wanted for a finish at the end of the day, but I mean, in all reality, that's the best he's run at Atlanta in a long time. So I really feel like they've gained a lot of momentum. We've used our a lot of NASCAR tests that were allowed, and I think where there's been some teams that are in safer positions and already locked in to the chase already, they've saved some of those for these last 11 weeks. But, where we were at the first third of the season and, our strategy and Zippy's strategy of utilizing those tests a little earlier, I think that we're starting to see the results of that pay off. Mark had a good start to the race and then got caught up in the same deal that Casey Kane got caught up in on that restart. And other than that, I mean, I think we were in line for a strong day there. I mean, he had to go out early qualifying, which wasn't an asset for us there. But, Mark's one of those guys that it doesn't matter where he starts. He knows how to run the race and especially race the race at Atlanta. So there wasn't any concern there. And I think we were in good shape there as well as if we would have had the opportunity to not get caught up in the crash there. So I feel like all three teams are doing a good job. I'm really proud of the 14 team. I mean, to have Max in the car the first week, Austin in the car the second week, and Mark in the car the third week, that's three big changes. And Steve Addington's probably, you could probably not have to sign him up for Rosetta Stone to learn new languages, because I think he's had to learn 3 new languages in the last 3 weeks, or 4 weeks. So, I think he's done a great job. The teams have done a great job communicating and working and, keeping their eye focused on what the goal is each week.
Hi, Tony. Tom Jensen, FoxSports.com. Assuming you're not back into the car till Daytona Speed Weeks, are you going to have Mark continue with the team into 14 to do the testing and development, or do you have somebody else that you're looking to bring in?
I'm all for Mark Martin doing all the testing he wants to do. I've never been a big fan of testing anyway. It's like watching paint dry to me. But, like I mentioned earlier, if there's ever, I don't know that you could pick anybody any better to, if that scenario happens, I definitely hope he would be willing to do that, and would love to have him do it for us. Because he's been around the sport so long and he's so detail oriented. I mean, you couldn't ask for somebody better to go into test, and that probably would pay more attention than I would about what's going on with every detail. So, that would definitely be a great option for us.
Tony, the busiest guy in racing goes from racing 6 nights a week to bedridden watching Oprah, and I guess that could go the other way, where you could be woe is me and feeling bad about yourself, but you seem in good spirits and you look good. You look like you've lost some weight. Yeah.
That was the goal.
Yeah.
I thought, man, the only way I'm truly going to lose weight, because I'm not as dedicated as Mark is to the workout program. The only way I'm going to be able to do this is just, I'm going to have to break something. That's the only way I can lose weight. So.
Yeah. So, because that's something that I asked Zippy. I said, is the mental part of it going to be harder than the physical part? So how did you overcome that? And did being here in Charlotte and that steady stream of visitors, because a lot of guys said that they went to see you and that they found you in good spirits. I mean, did being in this community help you with that?
Absolutely. And something that was really overwhelming right off the bat was the first 36 hours after the accident happened. I couldn't even type a sentence on my phone to reply to text messages, but I had 850 text messages in the first 36 hours after the accident. And it was people, I got one 3 days ago from Mark Webber from Formula One saying, call me. I had a similar injury and we just hope you're feeling better. The outreach from people from IndyCar racing, sports car racing, NASCAR racing, the sprint car community, and the visitors that we had. There was a day that we had 9 straight hours of visitors, and I didn't have a 5-minute break in between any of those. That's been a huge, huge asset in keeping me motivated and my spirits up. And I'm kind of surprised myself, to be honest. I'm surprised I've been this upbeat about it, and I don't know why. But I guess I just look at it as it's just a bump in the road. I've raced 36 years and never had an injury that lasted. The worst injury I had was an IndyCar crash, and all I had was fractures. And there was no scars. There was, no stitches, no anything that I had to look at. It was literally just waiting for it to heal enough that I was comfortable enough to even be in a car. But, it's been surprising to me. To go 35 years and run all the hundreds of races and thousands of races we've run, and to finally have an injury, it's like this hadn't been a bad run of going without getting hurt. So, it just seems like a small bump in the road. I guess if this was the 5th injury in a row that I'd had, or something that put me out of a race car, I'd probably feel worse about it. But it's, I'm one of those believers, everything happens for a reason. And, I feel lucky that, I guess if it's going to happen, that the timing of it happened in a scenario where I'm not going to miss next year. I'm not going to miss a race. So, it could have been a lot worse. Physically it could have been a lot worse, but the scenario of everything else surrounding it could have been a lot worse than this. So it's, it's not that bad. And Darrell Gwynn came and saw me, and that's the one thing that he said. He was really worried about me emotionally getting down. And, I spoke to him again this morning, and it just, I guess a lot of people have been really surprised that we've been this upbeat about it, but it's, got a lot of great friends, and a lot of great friends that are drivers that I compete with each week that have been there to keep me pumped up. Clint Boyer has probably been my comic relief. When I know he's coming to the house, I clean everything up around my bed. I clean everything up around, because I know I'm going to be laughing so hard I'm going to knock stuff off on the floor and everything. But I really wanted to wear a shirt that he brought me this week, and like everything else I want to do, like being on Twitter, it got vetoed by Mike. But it's just a black T-shirt, and it's got like the guy that's on the restroom door, the little stick guy, and he's got 2 crutches and the right leg's broke on the guy. But on the top of that, it with 2 letters in front of it, it happens. And I thought, man, that's a perfect shirt to wear to this press conference today. But of course, Big Brother over there standing at the podium in his nice striped
I just
suit
want
over
to keep
there.
you out of Twitter jail.
Yeah, I've been thinking that Twitter's would have been a really good idea the last 4 weeks, because I got a lot of time to think about stuff and talk and reply to things. But yeah, so I keep the battles that I keep losing, like you mentioned, whether Gene would actually trump everything, I'm still getting trumped by guys that I pay. So it's not really, my life really hasn't changed much.
Marty, did you have one? Okay, Claire?
I have two quick questions. Number one, we have a lot of folks listening on Sirius XM Live on NASCAR Radio, and all over it says # smoke will rise. What kind of reaction have you gotten from the fans who are listening now, either your fans or fans maybe who didn't follow you but felt for you?
Well, I know Mike follows that. I don't even know how to look at Twitter, to be honest. So that actually was Mike's creation. But I mean, we've got so many cards and letters in the mail that have that at the bottom of it, and I think it's just something that everybody's kind of been able to grasp onto that reminds us all that we're down, but we're not out, and we'll recover from this. It's just like I said, it's a bump in the road, and I've got a stack of cards from fans just that have come to Eddie's house that is this tall, not to mention what we've got at our race shop here. Spoke to my mom yesterday, and the amount of cards that we've got there, and they've actually put a board up, and everybody that comes into our shop has wrote messages on the board, and it's just been overwhelming, she said. So, I know there's a lot of fans that haven't been able to talk to us that are supportive, and that's the stuff, that's the things that help you when you're, when I'm having a bad day at therapy and I don't feel like doing it, or it hurts and you don't want to go those extra 10 minutes or whatever. That's the things that you put in your mind that help keep you motivated and keep you wanting to push to get through this and get healthy, is because it's not just for me. It's for 200 people here at Stewart Haas Racing. It's so Mike won't yell at me. And it's for our fans. It's for the people that support us every week that miss me being in the race car.
And my second question is, what are the most difficult parts of? We know you support the Kurt Busch edition, but what are the things that are going to be really tough? And then where are you on Kevin Harvick's team? Crew chief, team members, that sort of thing.
Well, we got a crew chief, and I think we're getting, I think he will dictate the crew members on that team like every crew chief always does. But, I think Zippy's more in tune with exactly the details of what all's going to have to happen to accommodate the fourth team, to get a lot of the new equipment that Gene wants to get through this process, and things that'll help not only his car but all of our cars. So, that's more a question for Zippy as far as every aspect of what it's going to take to do it. My role through this, as well as healing, is to be a cheerleader and keep Zippy pumped up. Like I said, he can't wait for me to get healed up, because he wants to beat the crap out of me right now for getting him in this position. But he's been amazing through all this. I mean, he's this is a relatively new role. He's been in this role for 2 years now, but there's a lot that's going to be happening, and 2 winners in a row, we're not going to be on cruise control like you would. And I don't think any team ever's in cruise control in the winter. You're always pushing hard, but this is going to be a different year, just like last year was, of getting new cars done last year. Now it's going to be getting new equipment, making changes to the building, adding a second building on the lot next door. There's just a lot of stuff that's going to be new, and Zippy's really the spearhead of that whole thing, and going to be the guy that's going to organize and orchestrate that. So, again, like we mentioned when we did the press conference about hiring Zippy, I mean, there's nobody I trust more through this process than him. And literally, like when he said that, he thought we could do this, and it wasn't going to be fun and it wasn't going to be easy, but we could do it, then that's what pushed me over the edge to say, okay, I'm in 100% with the timing of it. Let's do it. Yes. Yeah. I don't know that we've done any formal announcements on that, but yes,
We just did.
We just did. Welcome to Tony Doesn't Remember Protocol here.
Reed Spencer with the NASCAR Wire Service. Tony, since the news of Kurt Busch came out, I was just wondering if you'd had a chance to have a heart-to-heart with Ryan, and are you guys okay at this point?
Ryan and my relationship is still the same. Since this has happened last week, I mean, I really haven't had a time to sit down with a heart-to-heart. I mean, obviously, you had a busy weekend with the Coke ride along last week and the dinner on Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and during the weekend, I want him to stay focused on what's going on. But, I think today will answer a lot of his questions, but I still will have a conversation with him about it. The biggest thing is I want him to focus on what we're trying to accomplish this year. And even when we spoke earlier this year, before we made the announcement at Loudon, I mean, we had both, we were both very adamant to each other that our friendship was going to stay the same, and that, you know, we both knew where each of us stood as far as the business side of this, and understanding that it wasn't emotionally driven, that it was business driven, and that through this that our friendship would stay the same, and this won't change that.
Dustin Long, Motor Racing Network. 2 questions. Tony, first off, in the immediate time after the accident, did you fear about losing your leg or the end of your career or something like that, because this sounds like such a dramatic injury? And secondly, you mentioned earlier about, you know, kind of been running the team in essence for the last 5 years. Now as Gene is seemingly kind of becoming more involved in some sense, what kind of an adjustment is that in trying to learn how to work with, in essence, I guess, a 50-50 partner as they start to exert themselves a little bit more?
Well, the great thing is, you know, for 5 years I've done all the press conferences, all the meet and greets, and I welcome Gene doing some of these. I don't think there's a shot that he'll do that, but it's not really, I welcome that change. I mean, like I said, I'm proud that I have a partner that wants to be engaged and has steadily done that for the last 5 years and become more engaged as this has gone on. That's a good sign. I mean, that's, you know, for a guy that has a lot of responsibility of running a multi-million-dollar CNC business, I mean, he's emotionally vested in this as much as he is financially, and he keeps adding to that emotional side to it, which is great. I mean, it makes me feel good that I feel like we're making him proud, and that he wants to be more involved and more engaged in it, and you know, that's a great thing. I mean, in any sport, if you can have an owner that is becoming as engaged as he is, I don't know that you can ask for a better scenario than that. So as far as it being an adjustment, there will be, and obviously the last 2 weeks, you know, we sat with him last Monday and said, listen, what are you going to say when you go down there tomorrow? And he goes, I'll just wing it. I'm like, no, you can't do that. And speaking from experience, you can't just wing it down there when you get there. So he called me 2 days later and he goes, man, you were right. So, you know, he read what was written and realizes that you got to think about it a little more than just shooting from the hip with it. But I think it's as much of an adjustment for him as it is for me. And but the good thing is we're both working for the same cause and the same results, and that side of it's pretty exciting. I honestly didn't know. I didn't know what the extent of it was, Dustin, to be honest. You know, like I said, I'm kind of I'm squeamish when it comes to, you know, I can't let them draw blood to do my physicals each year without looking at the ceiling and stuff. So, you know, when it happened and when it was, you know, the doctor that I told you that was the first one to me in the race car, he was also in the ambulance, and he tried at some point during the ride to somewhat explain to me what was going on, and I did this and said, I do not need to know. I don't want to hear it. You know, I learned a lot more about it after the first surgery when the surgeon came in on when we got out of recovery and were coherent enough to understand what he was saying. We realized the severity of it then, but the threat of losing the leg, I don't think it was ever to the point where where there was a huge threat of it. There was a lot of trauma that went on with the leg, obviously, during that, but by the time the surgery was over, they'd already overcome all that and got everything stable. So, you know, I learned a lot more about it after it happened, but I guess during that process, I was on a need-to-know basis, and I did not need to know for sure.
Tony, I know you said that you've been watching the races, you know, with all the gadgets and radios and all that stuff, but what do you see? What's your impression of watching the races? I mean, you've been in every Cup race since you started. What does it look like to you on TV?
Same as the replays look like when I watch them on Monday after the race. So, you know, I thought Atlanta was good. I mean, I don't know. With the way the race was going, I don't think anybody knew 20 laps from the end when we had that first of the last 2 restarts. I don't know how you could have planned who exactly was going to win. I mean, Kurt's restart was outstanding, and, you know, threading the needle, and I mean, drove by 4 cars in one corner there on the restart. So I guess it really hasn't changed my perspective of it because it's, you always see the replays on Monday or Tuesday, or you see the highlights of it. It really, from that standpoint, hasn't changed. And like I said, I guess I've been a little more engaged than just watching it on TV. I mean, I spend more time watching the lap times on the computer and watching exactly where the cars are, and really stay focused on listening to the audio of listening to Mark's comments during the race and trying to, listening to my comments to how I talk about the car to Steve Addington and how Mark does. The language is totally different, but understanding it a couple weeks into this now and learning what he's wanting and trying to figure out, okay, what would we do in that scenario? And then I can scroll to Danica's channel and I can scroll to Ryan's channel and just going back and forth. I stay really busy during the race because I'm not only listening to what's going on in the 14 car, but I'm really engaged in listening to what all three cars are going through during the race. And like I said, watching it on the computer, I'm not sitting back in a recliner getting a beer every commercial break and watching it on TV. I'm really engaged and got a lot more information than what they're just getting from the TV broadcast side of it.
Jim Utter, Charlotte Observer. You get lauded for all your success in various forms of motorsports, but one thing that seems to have come out with this incident, particularly from Gene last week, is talking about how engaged you were here at Stewart Haas Racing, and even you today talking about, I was the one who said, are we really sure we should do this next year? And Gene said last week, I want to spend this money. Tony can be the good businessman. Do you think that your contribution here as a business owner, as an owner, has been kind of overshadowed a little bit the last several years, outside of just being a successful driver, that how much you're engaged in what goes on here on a kind of a day-to-day business, considering how you entered it as being offered a half ownership?
I don't think so. I mean, I've got a great group of people here, and I got Brett Fruit, I got Eddie Jarvis, we got Mike Verlander, Mike Arning. We've got a great group that run this business together. I don't run this business. There's a group that runs this business, and that group's been intact for 5 years. And the part that scared me when Gene and I spoke about all this is that for a split second, I was actually the adult in the conversation, and that probably scared me more than anything through the process, was that I actually was the one that used common sense and was like, wait, let's take a step back and think about this. And normally I'm the guy that's throwing the dart on the board and saying, if it hits yes, I'm full throttle and I'm out the door. So, but I think that's part of I think that's something that gained my respect with Gene a little bit, was that, he's wanting to spend a lot of money right now to do this project, and it would be very easy for me to say, heck yes, and give me the blank checks and let me go run with it. But, for 5 years, we've ran this like a business, and that's what he hired me for. I mean, he hired me to go out and win races, but at the same time try to help this business along. And I don't have a business degree, but I got a guy that works for me that has one hell of a business degree. And if you just pay attention a little bit, you can learn a lot. And whether it's the business guy or whether it's, guys that just have common sense that we have here, you can learn a lot in a short amount of time, and you don't have to have a degree to make good educated decisions. And but through all this, it's not me making a decision, it's a whole group that makes a decision. And that makes this whole process a lot easier because I guess it's like Gene mentioned last week, it's a very good checks and balance system of sometimes there's something that I think's a great idea, and somebody else may also think it's a great idea, but two other people may say, yeah, it seems like a good idea, but this is the negatives to it. And we've got a really good group that can really look at whatever the topic is from a lot of different angles and really make an educated decision about it. And I think that's what makes us a really good company, is it's not one or two people making the decisions. It's a group of people that sit down and try to find every positive to it and every negative to it before we pull the pin and make a decision one way or the other.